Today is such an exciting day. We have the formidable Cecilia Robinson in the house, founder, co-CEO at Tend, founder of My Food Bag, and founder of Au Pair Link, and mother of 3 and 1 young baby. Could the list get any longer? Thank you so much for your time, and we can't wait to kick into it and get to know you.
Cool.
So we're going to start off with what we call as quick fire questions,
sure,
just to get things moving.
Yep.
One word answers, if you can. What did you want to be when you were younger?
A lawyer.
Nice, fast. When are you most relaxed?
Oh gosh, I'm not most relaxed. Maybe in front of Netflix or relaxing in the evening when all the children are in bed.
Nice.
Long answer.
Do you have a hype ritual? If so, what is it?
Do I have a what?
A hype ritual.
Something to get you going, something to pump you up before.
Look, I feel like I don't need to be. No, that's a short answer. Just my children.
What calms you down?
Yeah, I think my children pump me up and calm me down all at once.
Who is your truth teller?
My husband, James.
Awesome. When are you most productive?
Most days, I'd say. Children make you productive.
Awesome. On a scale from 1 to 10, where is your level of self-love?
I think I'm, it depends on the day, but a high, like a 9 or a 10, like you have to love yourself, because if you don't love yourself, you can't really love others, so that's not a bad love, that's a long answer.
Yeah.
It's
a good answer.
Yeah.
If we asked your team what sort of leader you are, how would they describe you?
Motivating.
Nice.
Yeah.
Book or podcast?
Book.
You are reading. Book or podcast you are reading or listening to right now?
I actually read about 5 books at the same time.
Same.
So it's very hard to pick. But I'm reading, a range of books currently on women in innovation and female leadership. And currently reading a book called The Choice. So it's a range of different ones. Yeah.
Any fiction?
Not currently, but I probably need it.
Same.
Yeah.
Awesome. Alrighty, love it. There we go. Warm up over.
Way to warm up. And we love to sort of jump into this wide and beautiful question. Who is Cecilia? Introduce yourself, your passions, your career background, and what life looks like now.
It's actually quite funny. My husband's been on this email chain from school where all of the boys from his class are all going back and they're talking about who they are, and he literally succinctly distilled his entire life to now in a paragraph, and I thought that was a really interesting experience. And so who am I? I'm a mother of 3. I'm someone who is incredibly motivated about making a difference, and in particular making a difference in New Zealand. That's kind of my world, right? I'm passionate about driving change, really looking at difficult societal and business problems and delving right into them. I'll only do things that my career has brought me to a point where I'm quite selective about what I do, and so I will only do a business where I think I'll make a real difference. I'll only do it working alongside people that I really admire and respect and who energise me. That's a hard lesson to learn. And then the last one is I'll only do it for the country that I love, which is New Zealand. So that's kind of where I'm at in my life. And my children feed a huge part of who I am, but they don't define me,
Why is New Zealand so lucky?
Oh, that's New Zealand is my. This is the place I should have been born. I think it's been an evolution in me coming to realise who I am, and I've never felt a stronger sense of belonging in any country than what I do here. It's my home.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Well, it's incredible, and it's you made that choice.
Yeah, it's an active choice,
so very active.
And I'm a Kiwi from pro, so yeah.
Great answer. Your early years, were they formative to who you are now and your drive to succeed? And if so, how were they?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. I mean, my family's probably, I'll describe as semi-entrepreneurial. My dad had his own business. He taught English language in Sweden. He was incredibly hardworking and resilient through like tough times. You know, he came to Sweden as an immigrant and, you know, had all of those immigrant traits. You know, really wanting to work hard, trying to prove himself, learned a language. He speaks better Swedish than what I do at 25. You know, and I think that probably was quite formative and shaped me a lot in terms of who I am. And, you know, and that drove me to be motivated from an early age, like getting a part-time job really early. I think I was 10, you know, and always having that kind of drive to work to make a difference. So, yeah, I guess so.
So strongly already coming out your wanting to make a difference in everything that you do. Yeah,
I mean, I'm like one of my first jobs was like door-to-door sales for the World Wildlife Foundation at the time. You know, just door knocking, and that was really important to me and kind of taught me about resilience and perseverance and dealing with a no and really good.
Remind me when you came to New Zealand.
I was 21. 2021. So really early. I was 20 and when I first came here, and then I permanently moved over here when I was 21. Yeah.
That's cool. What's a secret to your success, and how does working with your husband contribute to that?
I think the secret to our success has been just doing it, like action over words, but also the fact that James and I complement each other incredibly well. And so he is a lot more methodical than what I am. He makes sure that once I'm away doing shit, that it actually is done properly. You know, he kind of makes sure that the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted, and you know, anything like that. We work really closely together, and I think sometimes people don't quite understand how close that is, you know. And it's really funny because with Tend, it's definitely felt like it's been more his baby than mine. It's become his baby because I got pregnant really early on in Tend's life cycle. We've been building a team virtually, and I've been juggling, you know, the 3 kids, and so it's been a really interesting experience. I said to him the other day, like, I really feel like, you know, you're really CE and I'm COO, like, alongside, and he's like, no, because all the attributes that you bring complement mine, and so it's, you know, the sum of the part make up the whole, and so it's really interesting, like, it's a really interesting dynamics, and I love it. I just wouldn't have it any other way. Yeah.
Do you sort of sit over a bottle of wine and go, right, we're going to get into healthcare? Or how does this...
I was going to ask the same thing. I'm apparently to my food bag to 10.
It's hugely challenging. The biggest thing about, you know, our business is that at a surface level they have nothing in common, but if you delve into them, they're all do with people, right? It's people businesses. We're good at business and we're good at people. Yeah. And we're good at solving problems. And, you know, Tend really was one of those annoying things that kept popping up in the back of our heads. You know, we were running my food bag at that point in time as CEOs. We'd recently been bought by private equity largely. You know, I remember spinning around to James when we were having this conversation, and to be frank, probably pretty demotivated post private equity ownership, and I was like, why are we doing this? Like, you know, like we want to do something different. We want to make a real difference. We want to, you know, kind of leave a legacy. And, you know, we kind of had this evolution of conversation around Tend. It kind of started, I'd say 2017, 2018, and I remember walking, we went, we'd by this point, it was early 2019, we'd retired from my food bag, we'd kind of just reshaped our purpose. We were just focusing all of our time and energy on our kids, and went for a beach walk in Papamoa while the grandparents had the kids, and I kind of said to James, I was like, look at everyone walking on this beach, like only a selection of them will ever use my food bag, but actually every single person on this beach should be a customer of our healthcare business. Wow. And he was like, yeah, I hear you. It's bigger than Ben Hur as a problem. The thing that I found about healthcare is that it's my greenfield. Like, we're in this forever. I'm not going anywhere. I'm not interested in selling. I'm not interested in anything. I'm just interested in solving the problems that we have in this industry. And they go into every single aspect of how healthcare is delivered, the patient experience and medication that we get, the infrastructure of our hospitals, the workforce. I mean, honestly, you just point yourself in a direction, you find problems in this industry. So you have to have a huge level of emotional resilience and ability to kind of step back and go, okay, well, we'll deal with this problem first because this requires our focus currently, and then kind of methodically look at what the next 20, 30 years of our life looks like, you know, and I keep saying to our team, you know, we're building a 100-year business, like we have to model ourselves on what Mainfreight are doing with a 10-year strategy, like this is our next 10 years of what we're executing on. And so, yeah, that's a long way to answer a question of how 10 came about, but that's really kind of the foundational part of it. So when you look at it at the surface, you look at OPL Inc., you know, I always say, like, I kind of went from managing, you know, teachers, a significant portion of teachers inside OPL Inc., because we were early childhood licensed, to chefs inside my food bag, which was incredibly complicated and often emotional and emotive, and to managing clinicians inside 10, which is really, like, it's quite interesting demographics of people, and it's been hugely enriching for me. It's a privilege, you know.
Yeah, that's interesting. What strikes me is just that real drive to solve problems from what you're doing, because you're just going like, okay, here's an industry that's got a lot of problems, and as we scratch the surface we find some more, and so I'll be here forever.
This is definitely the case.
It's gargantuan.
It's going all in.
Which could scare people off, but it doesn't, you know,
well,
that's
some
not
days
you.
it's scary, some days it feels overwhelming, and it feels like you've got a significant amount of responsibility on our shoulders. And I think if you look at our businesses, like we founded OPL Inc. off $500, we never put another cent in it, we didn't need to because it was self-funding. My food bag was funded off $250,000 of shareholder funding. There was never another cent put into my food bag. When private equity bought into the business, it got loaded with debt, but that was to buy out the founders. It wasn't because the business needed it. And so you have to look at that, and with tens, we're like literally investing tens of millions of dollars into rebuilding our healthcare infrastructure in New Zealand, and that's our money. And the money of the rest of the founding shareholder group, and like that is to make a real difference, right? That's to make a real legacy, and that's super exciting. You know, that's making a real difference. So it's some days are scary, but most days it's incredibly exhilarating and interesting and challenging. You know.
Totally.
What does Cecilia Robinson do when she gets scared?
I think James and I are quite good at balancing it between ourselves. We've got two other co-founders inside 10, Josh Robb and Dr. Mataroa Linden. Josh operationally works in the business alongside us every day as a co-founder. And between the three of us, we're really lucky. We've always had really strong founder relationships. And we talk about it, the three of us. Like someone will be having a down day, or will be feeling the pressure or the stress or something goes wrong. And often, I'd say probably 9 times out of 10, I'm the optimist that kind of has to pick up the boys and go, no, this is okay, like, you know, we've got this focus. And I think, you know, you just have to have that. You have to have that open conversation with each other, and that's why co-founder relationships, when they're working, can work incredibly well. And that's what we've found in our career. But it takes work and effort and relationship building, right, to be able to maintain that. So,
Because you can't really hide from it, can you?
No.
That doesn't achieve.
And you can feel like frustration and fear, and like in healthcare, I've had to learn that my personality trait, which is go fast, fucking go much faster than what I'm currently going, isn't always helpful, you know. And actually, like, we actually have to be really considered about and measured about what aspect of it we tackle first, what are the biggest issues, how do we build the underlying infrastructure to deliver on the problems that we see in society, how do we take a step back and look at the workforce and go, well, actually we need to pair this better with the problems that patients are having. Like, all of these things, it's not just a quick fix. Like, it's not a product like we had with my food bag that we could just, you know, we'd have an idea for a gourmet food bag and then we'd launch it a month later, right? So it's much more complicated, and I think that for us it's been the combination of experience and you know, hard work that's led us to where we are today, and it's really helped us to be able to solve some of these big problems. And I think it's part of the reason why some of this hasn't been solved in this country before. It's because you haven't had that depth of experience in it before. So we're by no means are we perfect, but we've got an amazing team that are combined to kind of resolve some of these big issues in our sector.
And it's a depth of experience, it's a perspective that maybe others have struggled to bring because they don't bring the experience that you have. And it's the ability to know when to speed up and when to slow down.
Yeah, and you have to collaborate. Like, you have to, you know, the value in what we're doing is, you know, and this is crazy to me, but technologists working alongside clinicians, like, there are no proper health tech companies in this country that are doing that to the degree that we are, where our doctors and nurses are seeing our patients and then immediately feeding into our technology team what's not working or what's broken about the systems and processes. And again, I have to say to our team, like, again, we're not perfect. Like, I don't think we'll ever be perfect. We'll strive towards it, and we'll always keep getting better. But the goal is to be like 1% better a day, right?
Yeah.
Every day making a 1% difference. And so by doing that, we're creating a better experience for our customer. And of course, the outcomes of that is, ideally, making New Zealanders the healthiest people in the world, which is a big goal, but we've got a bloody small population. I feel like it's a bit padding it, to be honest.
Hallelujah. Can I just say, thank goodness there's somebody like you doing work like this.
Thank you.
Because it is needed, for sure.
Yeah, completely. There's a lot of decisions involved in this. How do you make decisions in business? What process do you go through? Are you analytical, or do you sort of just follow your gut?
We have got different. I have never been more. So Tend has got the most phenomenal leadership team, and it's taken me a really long time. I had to reflect on our time in my food bag and kind of slap myself on the wrist and realise that one of the biggest mistakes that we made as leaders inside that business was not create a succession plan inside that business, not create clear leadership in our absence, and also that means that when you're not there, there's a void in terms of decision making and go forward. And so the brilliant thing about Tend is that we've got a really capable leadership team. People that have got real depth inside primary healthcare, people that have got really depth inside technology, people who've got depth in terms of clinical experience. We've got a fantastic CFO that we stole out of PushPay, Vicky PushPay, and so we've got this depth of knowledge. And when I'm making decisions, like I'm involved, and I often sit and I listen. I spend a huge amount of time on listening. Shocking for as much as I'm talking right now, but my team are often more qualified nowadays to make better decisions than I would make, and so. I was listening in on a conversation we had having this morning around, it's pretty clear we're on a massive big acquisition pathway. We're acquiring businesses throughout New Zealand, and I'm listening to, our CFO, James, and our Chief Network Officer talking about the deals that we're doing and how we're structuring them, and I just pipe up when I need to be, because they've got a good depth of understanding and knowledge of what the outcomes are that need to be driven, and I'm just there to help support and scaffold that decision making, rather than always being the kind of key person that made the decision, rather than being always the only person that drives the bus forward. And so that's been quite evolutionary for me, and I think it's circumstantial. It's happened because of COVID, because of us having another baby, because of us employing a calibre of person that is capable of making decision making and then leaving them to make that decision. It's pretty phenomenal, and it's a huge change. It gives me confidence that there's real depth of skill set in our leadership team, which is really exciting. So it's pretty amazing.
How do you choose your leadership team? What do you look for in a leader that's going to support you? And James in the business.
It's been intentional. It's been intentional selection. We've had our leadership team. Josh Robb is the most critical person that we have inside Origin, also stolen out of PushPay. Sorry, PushPay. Josh, we kind of took in the early days out of PushPay. By the time he left, he was running New Zealand. He was like, 10th engineer in there, and having that right technologist co-founder has been critical for our success. We went through quite a meticulous selection process in selecting Josh. Not the fact that we had a huge book of other people to look at. We did it. It was basically only Josh. But it was the fact that we would work well together, that it really was a co-founder relationship, and that, whatever we did, the three of us in particular have got that level of respect between us, operational inside the business. And in terms of the wider leadership team, we really looked for skill set gaps, and I'm a big believer in, not building on weaknesses, building on strength, and so you've got to get the best people in each sector. We've been lucky with the level of talent we've been able to attract. Our chief people officer, who's really critical, comes out of my food bag. She'd done a long stint over there and was on the market at the same time as we were. And we've got interesting people that have come along on our journey, and people that we've worked with for long periods of time. Our head of marketing, Sarah Aldworth, we've spent over a decade working alongside. She initially started doing work for us inside OP Link from a marketing firm that we've engaged at that point. And so I've had these people that I've got a high degree of love and trust and respect for, and kind of been able to assemble this A-team. Josh and Blair work together really closely inside PushPay, and so there's a huge degree of depth of understanding and trust and foundations that pre-exist. And so, I was saying the other day, like, healthcare is super noisy at a people staff level, and it's going away for 3 weeks. Our head of customer experience is Samantha Lee. She also came out of my food bag, went somewhere else, and then came back to me. And so I've actually got both of them going on holiday. Sam's just gone, Megan's just going. But it's really noisy when they're not there, and it actually shows me how much they filter things and how capable they are in their decision making. Because the quality of their decision making is so good. I only ever get filtered up things when it's really necessary.
Yes.
But right now I'm getting quite a lot of their noise, and it's entertaining to see like how much you're actually normally able to buffer. So
you keep going back and looking.
Yeah, no, I am. It's like marking down the days. Please come back to me.
I love it. You call it the noise.
Yeah, but it is. It's like you know, one of Sam's team members made a really small mistake today, and it was a really big deal to her. And I felt for her because she had to go to me instead of going to Sam to tell what had happened, right? And I was like, oh, it's just no big deal. Like accidents happen. Like let's move on. Like that's sweet, you know. And so. Even for the team, how they respond, because you're the CE, is like much harder for them than what it would normally be putting their hand up and saying that to their line manager in theory. So you just have to be aware of that and how you tackle things. So yeah, it's interesting right now.
It's very interesting. What do people misunderstand about you the most? I mean, in my feedback, it was really hilarious for a really long period of time because people always thought that Nadia was the CEO of the business. And so that was really funny. Often people will say to me, when in the days where we were still CEOs, they'll be like, oh, so what do you do? And I'm like, work for my feedback. Oh, what do you do? Oh, my husband and I run the business. Oh, what do you mean run? No, I work with the CEOs. And they'd be like, really? Are you sure? I'm like, you know what? I'm pretty sure. I checked yesterday, and still they haven't taken away. But like you end up in these weird conversations, and it was like, no, I really am sure. So so that was kind of quite a big one, and I think, in particular for James, where he's had less of a PR identity than what I've had, he'd have this. But like, are you really like? Are you meant to be there? What's your role? So. Yeah, I think that's a big part of it. But yeah, I think for us, people sometimes look at what we're doing and they think it's kind of accidental almost, like you did childcare and you did like food and now you're in healthcare, and they kind of look at it's random, like maybe at a surface level, but anyone that knows us understands that there's real synergy behind it, real structure, and and I think the other thing that people assume is that I'm not very present as a parent. And I'm super present as a parent. It's something that we both are. We take a huge amount of, I guess, self-pride or, well-being and our sense of self, and and being active parents, being there for our kids. Like we walk our kids to school basically every day of the week. We pick our kids up every day of the week unless they walk home by themselves or get picked up by a friend. We've got really amazing support around us, but we're really active, involved parents, and that's something that we're really proud of, but people kind of don't necessarily get. So
I can understand that, and particularly looking at a lens of somebody who's been as driven. And I mean somebody meaning both you and James, as driven as you are, that the misunderstanding is that comes at a cost to being a great parent.
And it's actually an active choice. Like I actively structure my days to be as efficient as I can be around the way that I work, and I'm quite happy. The cost has been, evenings often, working late into the evening rather than, missing out on critical time with my kids. And it's actually hilarious. Last week, James had a late meeting, which normally never happens. He came home at 6, and the kids around 4:30 are like, "Where's Dad?" Like, what do you mean he's got a meeting? Who is he seeing? He's seeing his mum. And I'm laughing because normally he's in the office working and he'll be in and out chatting to them, and they were like, "No, this is shocking. Like, what do you mean he's not here?" And so it's like, and I love the fact that that's their expectation. Like, it's their normal, like that's their version of reality, and that's really cool, because my dad worked really long hours to provide for our family, and that was really hard, and so many people still do that, but we've got the benefit of being able to design work around how we want to live, and we want to be involved parents. I don't want someone else raising my kids, that's not why I had them, to be honest. Totally.
Good for you.
I'm bouncing around a bit, but
that's cool.
just to sort of carry on from that, you're an entrepreneur, you're a mother of 3, your youngest is 9 months. What does this bring up for you, and what has your experience been through the journey of that?
What my journey has been.
Yeah.
Well, I think ultimately for me it's about passion. Like, you know, it's ultimately about, you've got to be passionate about what you do. I think Bill Gates on LinkedIn the other day was like, oh, you know, what's your advice for a young person? And he was like, well, basically go away and read books and do something that you're passionate about.
Yeah.
And, you know, that's really that's kind of the example I'm trying to set for our kids, is to do something that we're passionate about. And it was really interesting because when we sold my food bag, my food bag has gone through 2 transactions. You know, we sold the business 70% back in 2016 to private equity, and worked through that process of, you know, having a majority controlling owner coming in, and ultimately realising that wasn't for us as CEOs, was not our pathway. And kind of stepping back and going, well, like, we can do whatever we want. Like, we can just retire. So we retired. I retired at 35. I think I was, maybe even younger.
Wow.
In fact, I was younger. I must have been 33. And took like a year and a half off, and then realised that rather than retiring, I kind of just needed to redefine my purpose.
Yeah.
I actually needed to kind of look at it and take a step back and go, well, what is my purpose now, and who am I, and what does this mean? And so James and I did that, both of us, and realised that, you know, while we love being around our kids, and it's phenomenal, you know, I don't need to be there 24/7 a day to be a good parent.
Yeah.
And so actually what I also want is, I want to have a career and I want to make a difference in this world, and the best legacy I can leave for them is actually doing something tangible to improve their life in 10, 20, 30, 40 years time. So yeah, I'm not sure if that answers the question for you, but yeah.
And I think what it says to me is you've just done things that have given you choice.
Yeah, I've got, and like that's, you know, like, you know, you can, having financial freedom, the biggest benefit of it is choice. It's choice,
sure.
right? And it's a luxury to have choice. It's a luxury to go, you know, what do I want to do with my life, and having that opportunity, right? I mean, we've worked bloody hard for it, to be frank. But it's a luxury to have that, and you don't take it for granted, because you're like, actually, we're at a point in our life where we can pick what we want to do, and that's a privilege, right? It's a real privilege, and that's why we're in healthcare. Yeah.
It's a luxury, but you've taken a huge amount of risk, and you've made a huge amount of sacrifice and compromise to get there. I'm big on that. Because, you know, you've got to where you are because of all of that hard work and commitment and risk that you've taken.
And driven by passion and purpose and people. Like a theme, I'd never really thought about it until you said it, but if you look at Au Pair Link, you look at my food bag, you look at Tim, and it's people.
It's all the people. Totally. And it's often women for me. Like, a lot of these things are women's problems. You know, resolving childcare, resolving food, resolving healthcare for your family. Like, all of us kind of fall to women, right? Which is amazing, because women are so powerful and have got so much purchasing power and decision-making authority as part of their families. But also, you have to say that it also comes with a significant amount of burden. The burden of, you know, of healthcare appointments and all of these things, right? And so how can we make lives better for people, you know?
What advice would you give to women that are worried about having children and how it could affect their career, or wondering if it's possible to do both, to do family and business well?
Well, I'm kind of still annoyed about the fact that in New Zealand I still feel like we're in the 1980s when it comes to parental leave. You know, I don't think we've made enough progress, and I think a significant part of that is, you know, the fact that, you know, men don't take paid leave when they have children as much as women do. And I look over in Sweden, and Sweden's got a lot of faults. Like, I could give you a massive big list, and not just say, I mean, like, they're the crime capital of Europe currently, but anyway. You know, but what they do have right is their parental leave schemes, right? And, you know, the fact that not just women have a gap in their career, but men do too. And I actually think we need to be better at sharing that burden between women and men. And, you know, I'm not saying it's for everyone, but I'm saying you do actually need, it gives you perspective, right? You know, and I've always had a really high expectation of my husband, but he also has had a really high expectation of himself to be an involved father, right? Like, you know, he's an amazing dad, and he is present, and he is there just as much as I do. And so I think if you're thinking about having a child in your career, you can't just think, well, this is just me. When you have a partner, it's actually both of you. And, like, you have to both be there to parent, and you have to agree how that's going to work. You know, James is, he's phenomenal with the kids, like whether it's making breakfast, getting them out the door, reading them bedtime stories, picking them up at school, taking them to dentist appointments. It doesn't just fall on me. And I think it's quite easy as a woman that it just falls on you. And you have to be able to think about how that practically is going to work when you have that child, because otherwise I see it causing friction, I see it causing stress, I see it causing heartache, right? Because it's not easy throwing kids into the middle of a career. It's not like fairies and roses, like it's actually hard, and then you're sleep deprived on top of that, and so you just kind of have to be realistic. And then the same with the businesses. Mel and I were just talking about it at the start of this in terms of like going back to work. I kind of tuned out of work for like 6 weeks. James and I both did. We handed over the reins to Josh, who runs the business amazingly in our absence. And when I came back, I just started listening in on calls. So like I basically just turned my phone on, and because everyone was doing Google Hangouts meetings anyway, I didn't miss much, right? But it was awareness of being there, synthesising what they were talking about, adding to the decision-making process if I needed to. But I think you can find a way of working through this period, but you have to be realistic that it's going to drive change. And actually I think that as a parent, I personally make better decisions in my career because I'm more empathetic, I'm more understanding, I've got more patience with my team, and I balance that act much better than what I did pre-children, where I kind of just expected my team to be present and available, and actually now as a parent I'm often like, get offline. And I do that with our team whether they have children or not is irrelevant, but my perspective as a leader has changed. So I think you absolutely shouldn't be concerned about having a child as part of your career. It's just part of life, but it's about setting realistic expectations and not setting yourself up to fail. And women in particular, like post-birth care, I mean this is a health topic, but it drives me crazy, the things that we haven't had access to, the things that women put up with post-giving birth. It's the first time I've had 3 C-sections. My first one was an emergency one, and it's my first time that I've had physio after actually having a C-section. I mean, who knew that you actually need to have physio after having a baby? But clearly you do. I said to my physio the other day, I can't believe that I've had 2 other children and I didn't have you. And so like you actually have to put a framework around yourself, like to actually make sure that you physically and emotionally recover, because otherwise you're not going to be your best at work, right? So it's been a lot of lessons for sure.
Yeah, that's really practical and helpful. Thank you. What does a seat at the table mean to you? Obviously, that's the podcast name.
I reflected on this. I think it's about having a voice. I've been in some pretty interesting board conversations recently, and I get feedback that I'm very direct. Shockingly.
Is that a problem?
It's not a problem. It's an interesting dynamics, right? And, I'm very direct as a person. I kind of say what I think, and I have a strong voice, and I've got a strong opinion, which is funny because I'm balancing that currently in my role as CEO of Tend. I spend actually a huge amount of time, as I said, listening and piping up what I need to and providing direction. But I think having a seat at the table means having a voice, being present, and yes, there's definitely scenarios in my life where I felt like I haven't had a seat at the table, or where the seat at the table has been by default, or, we're actually the people that are, it's an A team and a B team, and you're on the B team, and so, your voice isn't as valued as other people in the room. And frequently that is by, people of a certain demographic, like it is often men of a certain age in a certain category who don't value your voice. But then also some of my biggest champions have also been men at that table in the same, so you get both of those sort of things, right? Yeah. And so I think nowadays I've got such a high degree of confidence in myself and who I am and what I bring to the table as a leader, that I don't question whether or not I should be sitting there. It's more whether or not the people who are at the table are listening and they're implementing what my suggestions are, right? And so like I'm a director in Pythons, and I've been a director in there it's my third year as a director in Pythons, and Mike Taylor, who's a CE in there, he's an incredible guy, such an entrepreneur, and he stalked me like for several years asking me to join, and in the end I thought, why do I keep saying no when clearly he's someone who's really prepared to listen? Like he wanted me there so desperately at the table to provide my view, and that's awesome, right? Yeah. So you have to look for people who actually want to hear your view, but making my voice heard has never really been a massive problem.
Why did you think he wanted you so much?
I think he wanted it because I think he wanted some other perspective, and I think that he as a leader has got a good awareness that the world is changing, and it's not just people that look like him in a boardroom, and it shouldn't be. And he's got a female chair now, who has been part of the transition the last year, and you have to look at that, and there are more and more people leaning in like that, and that are making an active choice to actually have diversity and inclusion as part of their board, right? And that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And so when you're the person that's a handbrake that keeps saying, actually, well, no, I don't have time, or I can't, well, actually, you're being asked, you actually kind of have to stop yourself and go, and actually, I could add value, actually, I will help you along.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's interesting.
And you talked about getting the confidence, or you've got the confidence now. What was the journey of getting that confidence, and how did you get that confidence for listeners that are not there yet?
Well, I think you have to build your skill sets. Fundamentally it comes down to having, we built Au Pair Link, and Au Pair Link was like a little business degree, and then my food bag was like an MBA. And then, you have to go through this, you go through this process of dealing with, Au Pair Link was super formative because it taught us, we were turning over 7 million when we sold it. We had 1,000 au pairs, 50 staff, and with that level of people management, actually you have a lot of complexity, right? It's actually quite complicated. And so then by the time we had my food bag, and we had 200 staff and 1,000 contractors from Thursday to Sunday, and massive operational complexities, you were taking some of these small issues that we seen in Au Pair Link and replicating them inside my food bag and going, okay, well that's that, but bigger. But we're still applying a lot of the same learnings that we'd have, and then again inside Tend, that's another big step up, right? So it's been building my personal IP, building my skill set, building my knowledge, all of those types of things have helped me feel confidence around it. But mostly it comes down to listening, right? Because you listen to the other people around you at the early stage of your business, and then you learn from that. And then you build that, you build your library of information, and then you're able to roll it out when you need to, right? And that's how you have that depth as a person. So yeah, that's really what I found.
Yeah.
And I suppose has it also been a bit of confidence that comes from knowing you don't need to know everything?
Look, for sure, it's definitely, you have to pick what you're strong at. You have to pick your strengths, and it's quite funny because, I'm not a financial accountant by any stretch of the imagination. Obviously I can, every single financial pack that is presented to any board meeting that I sit in, I'm right across it, I understand in depth, but it's not my passion. I do it because I have to, but it's not where I'm going to add most value. Where I'm going to add most value inside an organisation is at your people level, your marketing level, your operational level, all of those kind of critical marketing, PR, those are my areas of interest, right? And that's where I roll out my skill set, and I roll my sleeves up and I go, well, this is my mandate, and I look at it and I turn things over and make sure that we're getting it right. So yeah.
I love what you said a little while ago when Bar asked about seat at the table too, Cecilia, because I think, that sense of when people say to you, you're very direct.
Yeah.
I'm always tempted to say you say that like it's a bad thing.
Yeah, that's why I said, is that a bad thing?
Yeah.
And I think some people don't understand, or are just surprised.
Yeah.
And because they find it a little confronting.
Well, I find often in board meetings there's a consensus because people don't like to disagree, or don't like to have a robust conversation, or don't like to ask questions, and don't like to contribute in a way that it could be perceived as negative, right? But it's actually just about peeling back the layers and asking the right questions, and I think more demands should be placed on directors in terms of asking the right questions. In a sense, if you've only ever got consensus, you're failing, because then you're not asking the right questions. And so you actually have to be delving into complex problems and actually going, well, are we making the right decisions here? Or tell me what drives us, and actually contextualise that conversation. And so I think my directness can come across as, I've got a really strong sense of doing the right thing by our customer and by our people and by our suppliers. And so I kind of get back to that and I go, well, is this the right thing? And so, yeah, it's an interesting line of question.
Yeah. Ultimately protecting the shareholders, aren't you?
Totally.
Yeah. Asking those questions.
Yeah.
You surrounded yourself with two amazing ladies, Nadia and Teresa, at My Food Bag. Was that purposeful based on some of the things we've been talking about today? And what was it like to work with them? What did they bring to the party?
I think it's funny because what people don't know about Nance is that she had 1,200 followers when we connected with her to do My Food Bag. People feel like she was a household name, and what people didn't realise was that we grew My Food Bag and Nadia at the same time.
So true.
It was the most amazing brand experience. It was really bloody cool, and we with Teresa, she'd been an advisor to OPL Inc. and when we presented the business plan for my food bag, she was like, I'm in, like I'm putting money in, right? Yeah. And she's been amazing because she's been, you know, she's our best friend, probably to James and I. She's one of the people that knows us better than anyone else in the world. You know, Nadia and Carlos are custodians of our kids. And so, like, we've got a really strong founder relationship.
Wow. So they're...
Literally, if I don't know, they've got custody of like 3 children.
You're joking me.
Wow.
Were you close before, or did you form that?
No, it's been formed over, you know, a decade of working together and having a deep sense of love and respect and passion for each other.
Full goosebumps.
Yeah, and we're not you know, they're our best friends. Like they're probably more than that. Like it's more of a depth of like a family. Like it's a sibling relationship where we don't always agree, where we can agree to disagree. Where you know we have you know we have problems and we resolve them. It's funny because you know it's always hard when you're starting a business, in particular with people that you don't know, because you're trying to understand where everybody sits on the bus. And it took us probably about a year before we worked it out, but what became clear was that James and I needed to be CEOs of the business and run the fucking business and get stuff that needed to be done, right? Yeah. Nadia needed to be our brand advocate and our brand love and our brand champion, and Teresa needed to be our advisor and provide that framework around it. And Carlos, who's Nadia's husband, who's an incredible guy, also worked inside my food bag for a really long period of time. You know, we just found that synergy, and it's funny nowadays when we still do stuff together as a group, which we do, whether that's going on vacation together or looking at stuff that we're buying together or making other things happen together, we fall back into our same roles. So James and I end up being like CEOs of the groups. It's actually quite funny because I'm like, no, like James and I will lead this and we'll filter through to everyone else because they just need to know this bit, because they don't need to have all that noise. We'll filter it through to them so that they've got the right information to make decisions from. And so we actually fall back into our old roles really quickly, which is funny. So it's been one hell of a journey.
That's got to be hugely rare.
I think people don't understand as a founder group that we're really close. People think that I actually had someone say this to me the other day who at an optic level I thought would have known better maybe, but we are. We're incredibly close. Like, you know, I'm gutted that they moved to Queenstown and abandoned us. But other than that,
just nice to visit
still haven't forgiven them for that we're really lucky, you know, and I think that, you know, we built something phenomenal together, and, you know, we are really, you know, Teresa's with us in Tend, you know, she chairs our board, she is a significant investor inside the business, and so we've just stuck together. And it's funny how those things came back, because Lee Mathias, who was on OPL Inc.'s board when we did the concept for my food bag at the time, you know, we ended up with Teresa, and Lee didn't put in at that stage, but when we did Tend, we actually went back to Lee because she was a deputy chair of the Auckland District Health Board, has spent her entire life in healthcare, founded birth care, so we went back to her and she's like, well, I'm in this time, you know. Awesome. And so she's a shareholder inside Tend as well, and has served as our clinical advisory chair for a long time. So like these things, you know, I think for us we've been lucky that we have selected people as part of our team that we have built fearless loyalty to. Like there's nothing that I wouldn't do for Nads and Carlos and River and Boats, you know, like they're part of our family. Teresa, as I said, is our best friend. We love her to bits. And so they're our family, you know. It's an interesting journey.
And do you think it comes from having a really clear sense, you know, like good self-awareness and self-concept? You know who each of you are.
Yeah, I mean, like we had to learn that. Yeah. But once we did, it was like, okay, well, this is the way it works, you know. And that's had its, you know, pitfalls. I mean, like as I said, we've had, you know, issues that haven't been easy, and we've worked through things. And but ultimately, we're a really cohesive unit, you know, and there's not much that one of us will do without talking. I mean, like, you know, we there are things that happen, like, you know, Carlos recently was advising us on something that we were purchasing, and we haven't seen it, but we've purchased it because he said it was a good idea. You know, like it's you know, that's how close we are. So it's pretty close.
To have that trust and respect though for so long, and to actually have that family feeling is just, it's rare in business.
And look, it's been bumpy because, you know, my food bag listed under Waterman Capital. in the IPO that happened. It started last year, and none of us were directors anymore. We'd resigned from the board well in advance of the IPO, and so it hasn't always been easy.
No.
And the amount of media scrutiny clearly that's been on Nadia in an IPO that she had no part of is upsetting, right? And it's been hard for all of us. But the thing is that we're still together. We're still together in it. So
Strong relationships. We've got a couple more minutes with Celia if you want to add anything in, but if not, I've got this. It's a big one to end on actually, but let's do it. Where do you see the need for improvement in diversity and inclusion in business, and how can we do this better?
Yeah, it's funny because I think I only became a feminist and I must have been in my mid-20s. Like before that, I always felt like my voice was heard, and people who know me will know that I'm a massive big advocate for like co-education. Like our kids are in public school, not private. They will end up in private school, but they'll end up in co-ed private school. I believe that diversity has to start from very, very early ages. And I believe that, we're at a point in history where it's actually not cool to see all the male white boards that exist. And unfortunately, I think we're at a point where we have to put in quotas because there are so many talented people from a cross-sector of diversity that need a voice at the table, and there are many businesses that continue to resist this. And while for so long we've kind of said that ultimately that's a decision for that board, I think listed companies in particular need to have a significant amount of diversity in their representation. And I think the day of not doing that are well and truly over, and ultimately if you're not applying real ESG principles, then you're going to get left behind. And so, I make the DGL analogy here of the CEO that spoke about Nadia and has mostly male, had an all-male management team, a board that had one woman on it, and you just have to think that there's something wrong inside an organisation like that enables that view on women. And unless there's leadership at the top that clearly looks at that and goes, well, this is totally inappropriate, then you're just going to have that behaviour in the background because God knows what they're saying behind closed doors, right? So, you have to call that out into the open. And I think, unfortunately, because again, I don't think, quotas don't solve everything, but I think certainly it's a good step towards ensuring that we've got diversity. The other aspect of that is pay equity. We have to be reporting on pay equity, and it actually drives me crazy because, I see pay equity in the healthcare industry, and the biggest problem here is that one of the biggest issues in pay equity is the pay between male and female doctors is massive. There's a huge gap because women take time off in their career supposedly, and then this is a justification for it. But actually, many of them it starts much sooner than that, pre-having children. And so there's this. I've said to our team that we kind of have to start at a baseline here, and we're going to have to look at it really early, and where we have to start is when people are coming out of med school, and we have to make sure that we're banding them and that it's that it's fair. And so I think pay equity is another massive big thing that we have to do in business, and to really ensure that we're driving diversity and supporting a range of skill sets. So God, I could talk on that all day long as well. It drives me crazy.
Yeah, totally.
I've got one question for you. And I've seen it been asked on your social. Are you going to get into politics?
Definitely not.
You could be really
I appreciate the sentiment, but
you should.
That's
we
lovely.
need you.
No, politics is not something that's on my bucket list.
Good.
No. I genuinely feel like we can make more difference to the world through doing it through private enterprise than what I could do in that position, and it's not something I want to ever put for myself.